A busman's visit to Dennis Township. Route 55 ends, and the bus takes the scenic route, the old road, Route 47, known also as Delsey Drive. Before entering the township, some interesting pre-revolution facts. The earliest residents of the area were the Lenni Lenape, described by explorers like Henry Hudson as a tall, fair-skinned people. These Algonquin-speaking peoples were peaceful and friendly, and helped the first settlers who arrived in the late 1600s. One of these first settlers was John Dennis, who purchased land in the vicinity of Dennis Creek. His son Charles lived on this land with his family. One of his daughters married Joseph Ludlam, who came to the area from Long Island. He, along with another Long Island transplant, John Townsend, were responsible for what would eventually become the township of Dennis, likely named for Ludlam's father-in-law. Today, Dennis Township consists of over 40,000 acres, much of it marshland. About 65% of the township land is protected under various federal, state, and county programs. The township consists of 8 hamlets or villages. These are Eldora, North Dennis, Dennisville, South Dennis, South Seaville, Clermont, Ocean View, and Belleplain. Coming from the north on Delsey Drive, the bus enters Eldora. The bus crosses 2 creeks, East and West Creek. The land between the creeks was known as Stipson's Island, a 3-mile neck of land that extends down to Delaware Bay and was at one time a favorite resting place of presidents. Abraham Lincoln is said to have frequented the area. The actual village of Eldora, a bit south on the bus route, was the port of colonial days. Lumber, cedar posts, and farm products were transported down the creek to Delaware Bay and from there to Philadelphia. Returning ships brought molasses, shoes, and manufactured goods. Stores developed to service the local population. One such store, Levi Hand's General Store, is still standing, having been relocated to historic Smithville. The bus continues south, reaching the next hamlet, North Dennis. The first interesting spot is a right-hand turn towards Jake Landing. The road ends at the edge of Dennis Creek and the surrounding meadows in a spot called Mosquito Point. It isn't there anymore, but at one time a blockhouse stood at this location. The structure was put to use during the War of 1812, defending the area against the British Navy, active in nearby Delaware Bay. In other years, the area was frequently visited by smugglers, pirates, and during Prohibition, rum runners. Back on Delsey Drive, the bus passes the historic home of Henry Ludlam. Ludlam served as an ensign and first lieutenant during the Revolutionary War. He married Hannah Smith from another locally prominent family, and their marriage certificate was signed by then colonial governor William Franklin, son of Benjamin Franklin. That document is on display at the Cape May County Museum. In later years, the Ludlam house was used as a bed and breakfast and is currently a private residence. It is said to be one of the most haunted homes in southern New Jersey. Continuing through North Dennis, the bus passes the Ludlam School, built on land deeded by Henry Ludlam in 1801. The school served its primary purpose for more than 150 years. In addition, many groups and organizations met there, including the Whig Party, the Township Opera Society, and the Boy Scouts. Local boys mustered at the school to enlist for duty during the War of 1812. Still traveling through North Dennis, the bus next passes the William S. Townsend House, also known as 5 Chimneys. Listed on both state and national historic registries, the house has hosted a number of luminaries over the years, including Henry Clay, frequently unsuccessful presidential candidate in 1844. One of the wealthiest men of his times, Townsend owned thousands of acres of land, ships, mills, glass factories. He was also involved in local politics and served in the county's freeholder board. He married Hannah Ludlam Smith, descendant of Henry Ludlam. They had 9 children, including Annabelle, who eventually married Benjamin Lee, clerk of the state Supreme Court. Annabelle's claim to fame was her beauty, said to be the most beautiful woman in the county. She inspired the naming of what became the hamlet of Belleplain. Legend also has it that she served as an inspiration for Edgar Allan Poe's last great poem, Annabel Lee. A second Townsend child, Richard Townsend, was killed on July 2, 1863, during the Battle of Cemetery Ridge at Gettysburg. Just promoted to lieutenant, Richard participated in the Union defense against the famed Pickett's Charge. Townsend was buried on site at Gettysburg, where President Lincoln later dedicated the area a national cemetery. The last scene of interest for visitors is Johnson's Pond, one of several man-made lakes in the township that originated as a result of stream damming to produce power for mills. Across the highway from the pond is a privately owned cemetery, the Hedring Ludlam Family Cemetery, in which are buried many local luminaries, including Hannah Smith Ludlam. Leaving Delsey Drive by turning left onto Petersburg Road, the bus time travels into the hamlet of Dennisville. With numerous homes listed on historic registries, Dennisville was once a commercial hub with many stores, mills, and industries such as cedar shingle making and shipbuilding. Merchants and sea captains lived in many of the homes that are still standing. Dennisville opened its first post office in 1802. The first postmaster, Jeremiah Johnson, was also a tavern owner, and that tavern is now a private residence. Other prominent citizens included James DeVerte, shipbuilder and merchant. Another interesting Dennisville resident was Charles Pittman Robert, last of the shingle miners. The first shingles for the roof at Independence Hall came from Dennisville, some 25,000 shingles. Og Gandy, another local, was a well-known cedar miner, an interesting specialized industry, the tools of which are on display at the local museum in Dennisville. That museum is the next stop on our tour. Built in 1874, the Dennisville School served local youngsters in all 8 elementary grades until 1947, when a fire destroyed the second floor. That part of the building was never repaired. The school was next used as the township's municipal building until a new complex was constructed on Petersburg Road. Rather than let the building be destroyed, local citizens created a museum. Today, visitors can step back in time to different eras of the township's history as examine the photos, artifacts, and documents on display in the old schoolhouse. Leaving Dennisville back on Delsey Drive, the bus crosses Dennis Creek. It may not look like it, but the creek was once the site of one of the busiest shipbuilding and commercial activities in southern New Jersey. Wharves, stores, and 3 busy shipyards lined both sides of the creek, where newly built schooners were launched and towed by teams of oxen toward Delaware Bay and the world. The bus also passes a modern-day convenience store known as Wawa, which was the site of the Dennisville Inn, a gathering spot and community space where one would be able to stop and use the restroom and get a drink. And it served that function from about 1830 until it was moved to historic Cold Spring Village in the 1970s. South Dennis is next up on the other side of the creek, and the first bus stops at Union Cemetery and a monument commemorating John Grace, Revolutionary War scout for George Washington. A short distance from the cemetery stands the Joseph Falkenberg House, a majestic brick structure built in the early 1800s. The bricks purportedly brought to the New World as ballast aboard a British ship. Joseph Falkenberg was an American rags-to-riches story. He came to this country a poor tailor, but through hard work and some shrewd investing, he amassed a fortune. At the time of his death, he was one of the richest men in the county. He married well, too. He married Abigail Ludlam, eldest daughter of Henry Ludlam, who we met earlier on the tour. Their daughter, also Abigail, married into the Leeming family. Her son Richard became a major shipbuilder on Dennis Creek. The bus leaves Route 47 now after a brief backtrack to the intersection of that road with Route 83. A left-hand turn off that road takes the bus into the South Seaville Road, next stop on our tour. We pass several turf farms and the township's modern recreation center before reaching our next stop, South Seaville Methodist Meeting Camp. Started in 1863, the camp consists of dozens of Victorian-style cottages arranged in a woodland setting. Each summer, participants journey to the camp for 2 weeks of religious activities featuring many noted speakers and preachers. Crossing the King's Highway, the bus passes the Alpha Hall, once site of the local Grange meetings, and enters South Seaville. Numerous well-tended old homes, some going back to the post-Civil War era, line Main Street. A prominent local landmark is the former Collins Lumberyard, where generations of that family once conducted a thriving business. Today is once again operated as a lumberyard, and some of the original buildings are still in use. Notable residents of South Seaville include Frank Wheaton, whose family established the large Wheaton glass industries in southern New Jersey, and Elmer Smith, grandson of one of the first settlers in the area. Smith was an inventor who developed a steam turbine engine for General Electric. Smith was also a major contributor to building the parsonage at Calvary Baptist Church, located at the end of Main Street and our tour's point of departure from South Seaville. The church is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. The church cemetery goes back to the 18th century, and veterans of the American Revolution, War of 1812, Civil War, and other military actions up to the present time are buried there. At the juncture of Route 9 and Main Street, the bus first goes south for a visit to another township village, Clermont. Once known as Squedunk, ostensibly a Lenape brave who lived in the area. Clermont was well known for its seafood products, particularly clams and oysters. Both were harvested from the nearby sounds and were called Cape May salts. The product was conveyed to South Seaville for transport to Philadelphia by rail after being freshened with spring water and packed in barrels covered with burlap. Heading north on Route 9, the tour enters the village of Ocean View and passes Magnolia Lake and Jalma Farms. Located on the original farm settled by John Townsend at the end of the 17th century, Jalma Farm is operated by a fifth-generation farmer, raising beach plums and aronia for making jams, jellies, and dressings. The lake, man-made, was created by Townsend after he dammed a stream for the purpose of establishing a mill. The privately owned lake has been used not only for water power, but recreation and religious services like baptism. Early settlers established a salt industry, and today a local entrepreneur has established a sea salt business in the area. Passing through Ocean View's commercial district, the tour turns back on Route 550 through the town of Woodbine. The bus then passes Belleplain State Forest, 22,000 acres of woodlands and recreational facility including Lake Nummi, a man-made lake dug out of the cranberry bogs by the CCC, Civilian Conservation Corps, during the Great Depression. The bus route mimics one of the state's oldest stage roads, passing Tarkland Tavern, a colonial-era inn mentioned in the diaries of prominent colonial Aaron Leeming. Descendants of the area's first settlers, many of whom came from Italy and Poland, still call Belleplain home. The originals came here for work, on farms and on the railroad which came through Belleplain. The event was so important that the first station master was honored to give the town its name. He called it Belleplain, in recognition of Annabelle Townsend Lee, the beautiful daughter of William S. Townsend, who owned much of the land on which the town was built. Early industry in this area included ice houses, gravel and sand mining, brick making, sawmills, basket making, and agriculture. Products were shipped by rail. Belleplain did more than its part during World War II. Out of a population of around 200, 58 men served. 4 men did not return. The Old Schoolhouse Museum has a display commemorating Belleplain's contribution to the war effort.